sister or brother got called?
They're my sister, young sister.
Oh, your sister.
Youngest sister.
Oh.
He's worried it might happen. I don't even know. We're trying to find everybody calls and everything. Just worried.
Oh.
Yeah.
Call them.
We're on it.
They don't bother me. Huh? Or we can call them when we get in the car.
You can see the dark wooded ridges, Presidio of San Francisco. Some say this is the birthplace of San Francisco. Let's go back in time, 1776. 3,000 miles from here, on the Atlantic coast, America's 13 colonies were about to start the American Revolution by declaring their independence from England. But here, on the Pacific shores, Spanish conquistadors were seeking out new territory to claim for Spain. The bay may seem large, but it wasn't always so obvious to find. As you look at the shore, let's listen to an archival interview with John Martin, a California historian.
For 200 years, Spanish ships have been sailing up and down the California coast, but they stayed so far off the coast that none had ever come close enough to see the entrance to the harbor. The first ship that actually entered San Francisco Bay was called the San Carlos, a little 80-foot long packet boat Captain Juan Manuel de Ayala command piloted the little boat through the streets, hadn't even yet been named the Golden Gate, treacherous, rocky straits, anchored off what's now Angel Island, and spent the next 8 weeks charting the bay and naming the geographic features.
After that first boat came into the bay, a year later, on March 28, 1776, Captain Juan Bautista de Anza stood on the bluff where the Presidio is now. Imagine him looking down at the narrow entrance to the Bay of Argolis. On that spot, he planted a cross and established a fort. The word Presidio translates as Army Post in Spanish, and the cross marked the northernmost point of Spain's vast empire. Father Pedro Font, who accompanied the Anza, had more of an eye for natural beauty than military strategy. That day, he wrote in his diary that if the bay
Could be well said with assurance. There would not be anything more beautiful in the world.
he was quite a visionary, because the beauty that Father Font saw was more rugged than the beauty we see today. Look again at the forest of the Presidio. 200 years ago, those ridges were barren rock and sand. The first trees were planted there in the 1880s, a century after the Anza planted his cross. Today, the Presidio is now under the protection of the National Park Service, and many of the historic military homes have been restored into housing for local residents. It is a popular destination for hikes. If you like movies, it is the location of Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects company that made unforgettable films. The Indiana Jones series, Pirates of the Caribbean. Let your eyes sweep across the bay. We are traveling back over 150 years ago, when San Francisco was a sleepy town on a beautiful bay in the middle of nowhere. That was 1847. But in 1848,
Gold on the American River.
San Francisco stayed as a quiet mountain along
She's
the
just
river.
checking in.
At first, the town almost disappeared. Everybody in San Francisco ran their pick and shovel, headed for the hills. The editor of a
Man,
local
they have you on
newspaper wrote in an
location.
editorial,
The stores are closed, and places of business vacant. As if a curse had arrested our onward course of enterprise. Everything is dull, monotonous.
That's okay.
That editor then locked his doors and headed for the gold fields himself. But the town didn't stay deserted for long. Young people from all over the world came here to San Francisco. In just 2 years, population skyrocketed from 500 to 25,000. Look back at the city. Life in San Francisco is truly wild and woolly. At the heart of the Badlands was a stretch of waterfront called the Barbary Coast. These views are long on action and short on law and order. In memoirs written years later, some people recall it as a slice of heaven, while others recall it as a corner of hell.
I have seen purer liquors, better cigars, finer tobacco, truer guns and pistols, larger dirks and bowie knives, and pretty courtesans here in San Francisco than in any place I have ever visited.
Goods of every nationality held high carnival there. It was a grand theater of crime, licentiousness, debauchery, insanity, misery, poverty, wealth, profanity, blasphemy, death.
Thousands of fortune seekers came to San Francisco during the gold rush. Most people arrived by boat. Ships from all over the world tried to get into this harbor. One historian estimated over 700 ships piled up along the coast during the first 6 years of the gold rush. Now look ahead at the south or left end of the Golden Gate Bridge. Situated underneath that bridge is Hugh Goodwin. It may look small beside the bridge, but in its day it was an impressive symbol of strength.
That's Old Port Point. As you get closer to it, there are 3 level, big black squares on the floor. Each one of those is a gun point. Behind each one of those gun points is a huge cast iron cannon, the biggest of which could fire a 128-round cannonball about 2 miles. Even the roof of the fort was ringed with cannons.
Fort Point was completed in 1861. It stood guard over the narrow mouth of the bay, protecting San Francisco's vital port and California's immense wealth of gold and silver against intruders. However, no intruders ever came, and, like every other fort around the bay, Fort Point had never fired a shot in anger. Today, park rangers in full Civil War uniform give tours of the fort daily. They even teach you how to load and fire a Civil War cannon.
Su atención, por favor. Estamos acercándonos a aguas turbulentas bajo el puente Golden Gate. Por favor, siéntese y sosténgase firmemente. No use las escaleras. El capitán anunciará cuando sea seguro el poder moverse de nuevo en el barco.
各位乘客请注意，我们将会接近金门桥下的急流水域，请抓紧扶手或坐下，请勿使用梯级，直至听到船长的安全指示，才可以继续在船上行走。谢谢。
We are approaching the Golden Gate Bridge. Look ahead out the front of the boat. Today, the Golden Gate Bridge seems perfectly suited to its surroundings, exactly as it stands. But try to imagine it not being there. When plans for the bridge were first proposed, many said it couldn't be built. Some even said it shouldn't be built. Early environmentalists didn't like the idea of the bridge. They believed it would ruin the natural beauty of the Golden Gate. American author Catherine Gerald was one of many who expressed opposition at the time.
When you have one of the most romantic approaches in all geography, why spoil it? In the interest of your own uniqueness, dear San Francisco, do not bridge the Golden Gate.
The War Department in Washington, D.C. objected by claiming that it would be a serious hazard to airplane navigation. Well, despite the protests, there were many people who wanted the bridge. First among the supporters was the engineer Joseph Behrman Strauss. He not only designed the bridge, he was obsessed with it. He wasn't a man to give in to an engineering challenge or political opposition. Encouraged by Strauss, the voters in the region approved the bridge. Construction began in 1933.
The design that was finally developed actually turned out to be one of the most gracefully delicate objects of Art Deco art that was ever created. The scale was just the towers. They're 700 feet in height. The main span 4,200 feet long. No one had ever built a bridge like this before. Some people say you could never build it again.
Look at the tower at the San Francisco end of the bridge. Then look down at the concrete foundation the tower is standing on. This was the first great challenge. Building the concrete pier in water more than 100 feet deep. Enormous temporary walls were built, enclosing an area in the bay the size of a football field. Water was pumped out, and the concrete was poured. Next came the two towers. When they were completed, thousands of steel strands were bundled together to form the enormous main cables that connect them. Finally, the road itself was built, starting at both ends and working toward the middle to keep the bridge in balance. It's easy to describe. It was far from easy to accomplish. Imagine working there, day after day, in the cold, in the fog, in the rain. On major construction projects in those days, experience had shown that one workman usually died for every $1 million spent. The budget for the bridge was $35 billion. But Joseph Strauss was determined 35 lives would not be lost on this bridge. A safety net was fabricated and suspended below the workmen, and although 11 men did die during construction, 19 men fell into the safety net and were saved. Those 19 lucky men formed a very special club. It's called the Halfway to Hell Club. Of the 11 men who lost their lives during construction, 10 of them died in one
Crissy Field at Gold Gate Bridge at Fort Point is kind of one of the top windsurf locations in the world. It's caused by the wind, which is howling in the Cape. A mix of waters trying to force their way into the harbor and also outside the winds. The more churned out, the better, but it's not very much.
Are you cold? Or sun? You want my shades? Much better? So the $500 shades are your land. No. 500. I'll buy you a pair too. It's designer. It's Versace. They look good on you. You look good. You want another one? No, I don't want you drunk on this boat. That was good for you.
Now we are out of the bay where the water can become choppy and treacherous. In the 1850s, a number of lighthouses were built along the California coast to help guide boats into the bay. 3 of the lighthouses are still here in the bay. But even with lighthouses, buoys, and foghorns, navigating the narrow harbor entrance is no easy feat. Thick fog, shifting currents, created Alcatraz, the very last stop in the country's prison system. The place to send the worst criminals of all.
Yeah, my name is Leon Whitey Thompson. My number was 1465, AZ 1465. I was a man that had total hatred in them days. I hated anything that walked the call on this earth. And when you got a man like that in prison, you got to get rid of him. And that's what they did. They shipped me to Alcatraz.
That's crazy. This place.
These were hard men, kidnappers, bank robbers, killers, men so dangerous that when the first batch arrived by train in 1934, not one was allowed to step down onto free soil. They simply loaded the train cars, one by one, onto barges, and floated them out to the island with the inmates chained up inside. Rumor was that if a man died on Alcatraz, his corpse would leave the same way, stone cold dead, but in chains. With men like these, you could never be too careful. The building you see on top of the hill was the inmates' new home, the Alcatraz cell house. One described it as a tomb of living souls. Some would stay for a year, others for 20 or 25 years or more. To get an idea of the accommodations inside, go ahead and reach your arms out as far as you can from side to side. That's how wide an Alcatraz cell is, 5 feet across. Now reach your hands up high above your head. That's how tall, and only a bit longer from end to end. The cell house might look huge from here, but it was never completely filled. No more than 300 inmates lived inside at any time. 300. They could all fit on this boat ride today.
Oh, it's the Alcatraz ferry. We picked that one, we tour it.